Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar on FERC Form 6Q. Thanks for joining us. I'm Scott Tice, the President and Chairman of NovaWorks. Also with me is Margaret Gardner, who is a Principal Developer for NovaWorks, and also one of our presenters here, and Paul Doris, who is a Senior Account Rep. So that's our team today. Let me go ahead and move on. So a little bit about NovaWorks. We're a leading provider of compliance solutions for federal regulatory agencies for over 15 years. In fact, I myself have been working with this stuff for a long time. The Edgar pilot came out in 1984, and that was with the SEC, and I started working on that in 1984. So I've been around it and building stuff forward and helping with these systems for quite a long time. We're also collaborators with XBRLworks. XBRL is the NGO that helps to maintain and educate XBRL for the United States. So I serve as the Domain Steering Committee Chair and also am leading the XTAC or XBRL Technical Advisory Committee for XBRL. XBRLworks itself is backed by highly experienced staff. It's not just me, Dave Tice, and a whole bunch of other people here have been working with XBRL since the beginning. So we know a lot about it, and we try and make it as simple as possible for people. So speaking of which, we'll move on to our approach to FERC and XBRL. Basically, the number one thing is to have XBRL be behind the scenes. In some respects, XBRL's got a bad rap over the years as being very complicated, and that's kind of because it started off with the US GAAP, which in and of itself is quite complicated. We wanted to make this, and it's possible with FERC because it is fairly well structured, to have it so you're in control of the data, but you don't have to know all the subtleties of XBRL. As we built this, it's a collaborative environment, meaning that you have the ability to have audit trails and control how the data is managed, and also control who's working with it. The database itself is organized by FERC taxonomy. So basically what we're doing is we organize the insides based on what their current taxonomy is, and then we display the data on the forms that you're used to, the paper style forms, so you can edit it in that manner of just pulling in templates or whatever the case happens to be, and also look at that way when it's proofed out. XBRLworks is designed to fit in your workflow. There's a lot of different ways you can do things, and we have a lot of different ways of adapting to that. So if you're on the single person that runs through and enters the data, and or you've got 5 people who are involved in it, and some people have different roles, you can adjust the roles and do things the way you want to do them with our software, and it'll help you control that. Some of the benefits to our approach is that the data can be shared and managed at several levels. It really helps in terms of how extensible it is, and again, how you can work with it. Spreadsheets and documents are easily imported. You can just drop them in and paste them in. You can proof your work at any time, and you can proof it without having to send it down to FERC. So you can also look at individual pages, so you don't have to dump the entire thing out on each proof. And XBRLworks validates your information on the fly. So and we'll show that during the demonstration here. If something's wrong, it'll pop up and tell you that something's wrong with it. And then we also run the FERC XBRL rules, which are basically part of what's down at FERC that they run when you file, and you also can get it back when you file test filing with them. But you can do that without test filing and just directly run the rules right within our software. XBRLworks is very easily updated, so if they make a taxonomy change, we can quickly adapt that and put it in. And that really ends up applying to the database, and if there's any adjustments to some of the screens that come up or the proof pages, we go ahead and fold that in. On the last one that we did, I think it was way less than a day's worth of work. It was more just running through and making sure everything works than actually implementing it. So with that part of it, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Maggie Gardner, and she is going to perform the demonstration on how XBRLworks works for Form 6Q. Maggie.
Thank you for that introduction, Scott. It's my pleasure to be here. Welcome, everyone, to our demonstration of XBRLworks. I'm Maggie Gardner, one of the developers here at NovaWorks, working with our FERC team to develop a simple solution for preparing and submitting your filings to the FERC. XBRLworks is extremely easy to use. It's accessible, and it makes creating XBRL filings the easiest part of your FERC compliance process. which is why I'm very excited to show you how it works and get you started on preparing your own forms. I have the software open here, which you can find by typing ferc.xbrl.works into your browser. XBRLworks is compatible with any web browser. It runs on Microsoft Azure with automatic scaling and fallback, so it's a very robust system with nearly 100% uptime. To start, I'm going to log in with an account I've already made. We'll show you how to register at the end of the presentation so you can get started right away. There's also a 30-day trial you can claim when you register after this presentation, so I would recommend that everyone who doesn't have an account take advantage of that. Once I log in, XBRLworks will bring me to my dashboard. The dashboard puts commonly used items at a glance to give you an overall picture of your progress on your filings. On the left here is a calendar that will have important dates marked. You can see in the filing deadline for Form 6Q in the important dates area, along with some federal holidays. If I assign tasks to myself using the XBRLworks task tools, I can add other due dates, which would then appear in this area slightly to the right of the calendar. I'm not going to go into tasks very much during this presentation because I know all of you really want to get into how you can prepare your Form 6Q. So let's go ahead and start there. On the dashboard, there are two places to quickly get back to any forms I'm currently working on. You have recent projects, which shows the last 5 projects or forms that I was working on, as well as this area up at the top that has a link to the exact page I was last working on. So you can see I was editing this page of my 6Q for the previous quarter. I don't want to start on that project since it's a new quarter. I have a few options in XBRLworks for handling the start of a new file. If I like, I can use the previous quarter as the basis for my new filing by making a copy of the previous project. That option is available by clicking on the Projects button and then opening up the project list. Then I can copy any project by clicking on the Tools button here and selecting Copy. For this demonstration, I'm going to start a project from scratch to give you an idea of how easy it is to create and submit this form using XBRLworks. So, to do that, I can click the New button right here. I can also create a new project from the Projects menu. So now we have a short form where we can enter some project data. First, the project name. This is not filed to the FERC. This is just the name I can use to keep track of what this project is. I can add the quarter name and the company name, whatever I want to help me remember what this project contains. Then the form type, very simple, just select 6Q. I have a Basic Plus subscription to XBRLworks, which lets me create any FERC form for XBRL. Some of you may find that a premium subscription is a better fit for your company because you're working with teams and want the collaboration tools in the software. We'll go over the different subscriptions in a little bit more detail at the end of this demonstration. Then the company identifier. This is your FERC CID. XBRLworks is not limited on how many different CIDs you can file for. Some of you may file for more than one entity. The Basic Plus subscription will cover you for all of them. It's one low price for all of your filings. All you need to do is change your FERC filing credentials between submitting the filings, which takes a little bit of time, but honestly is much better than buying multiple licenses or subscriptions to a product just for the ability to complete all the filings. Finally, we set the period for the filing. XBRLworks will choose a period for us based on what it thinks we are filing. It selects the quarter that is prior to our current date. The deadline here is a self-imposed deadline, and that's just another tool to keep myself aware that I need to complete my work by a certain date. I'm going to set this out and then click Create. Okay, XBRLworks set up the project for me. I have a snapshot of my progress for the filing. Right now, I have 0 completed pages, 1 ongoing page, and 12 not started. In the area down below, you can see the list of all the pages available in the form. If there are pages that don't apply to my company, I can actually tell XBRLworks to show me the pages that apply to only my filings. That's a setting in the account preferences. Let's go take a look at those account preferences. To get to them, I can click on my username in the upper right next to the logout button. This opens the account settings. I can click Preferences on the left navigation bar to open up the FERC filing preferences. The General tab has general options for my account, like the time zone and options for my dashboard calendar. I can also set email notifications to have XBRLworks send me an email when certain deadlines approach or when certain operations are complete. And then there are also options here for calculations and proofing. The Projects tab has the options for my projects. On this page, I can select the forms I file and even the pages I file. For example, I'm working with an oil company right now, so forms 1, 1F, and 3Q electric don't apply to me. We've clicked the not applicable button next to each of these forms. You can see when this option is checked, these form types will not appear in the list when I'm creating forms. I can turn them back on by clicking it again whenever I want. If I click on the form name, the card will expand and I will see the form pages that apply to that form. For my company, I don't have operations operated by others, so I've unchecked page 600A since it isn't applicable to me. I can bring this back by checking it again, and then I can click Save to save my preferences. I can navigate back to my project from my project list. So you'll see again that page 600A is not active on my project. If you change the preferences, it won't change any projects that you've already made. The preferences only apply to new projects. But there are tools on the projects to hide pages. I'll show you how to hide some pages. First, we need to open the page. So we're just going to click the link next to a page to open it. Once I have this page open, I can click the navigation button to access the pages. Then I also have these buttons up in the toolbar. Back goes back a page, forward moves forward a page, and exit goes back to that project summary or details page. So we can pretend that page 600 also doesn't apply to my company. We might just not want to see these pages cluttering up our workspace. So I can click the Tools menu here and select Not Applicable. You'll see in a second that all the fields will become grayed out on this page. So now I will not be able to accidentally enter data. If I go back to my project details, this page is no longer visible in the list of pages. I can view these pages by clicking on the View Not Applicable Pages link at the bottom of the list. And I can click again to hide them. So that's a simple tool to help me keep track of what I'm doing. Now let's look at how to add some data. Let's start with page 1, identification. This page contains the identification for the company and the filing. You can see that XBRLworks already added data for me. For example, the company identifier is already filled out, as is the report period. The rest of the fields on this page are very simple to edit. I can just click on the field and type. I'll enter the respondent name and some other data on this page. If I have questions because I'm not sure what a field means, XBRLworks has some help right on the field, so it's quick to get to. Click the little question mark button that appears when I hover over the right side of the field, and that will bring up the XBRL information for that field. This here is the extent of your exposure to XBRL and XBRLworks. This gives you some information about the underlying XBRL element or concept, which includes the label and documentation for that concept. The documentation can help you identify exactly what you are disclosing in this field. I can also see if there are any other pages where this field appears. I'll be able to show you that a little later when we come to some of the financial data. This tool definitely helps if I'm trying to troubleshoot a validation or calculation problem to make sure I have the right data. The inspector also shows me the edit history for a field. This can help with an audit trail for the data. You can tell when, and if you have an XBRLworks subscription that supports multiple users, even who edited the field in the past. So let's close this and go back to our form. I can save at any time. Quick keys for save work also, so if you're used to using Control-S, go ahead. Once my page is saved, I'm going to click Exit and get back to my project details. Let's work on another page. I can edit these items in any order, so if my data is coming from different departments and it's not in the order of the form, that's fine. I don't need to wait to have all of my data to start working, and I can work on any page at any time. So this is page 110 loading up here. XBRLworks is dependent upon your internet speed, so sometimes, depending on how fast your internet is, you might have a little bit of a delay in pages loading. Okay, this is the balance sheet. I have data from my company in an Excel workbook, but XBRLworks can take data from a lot of different sources. As we saw on page 1, you can certainly key the data in manually, but that's pretty time consuming. So I'm going to show you how you can easily copy and paste into XBRLworks. I can copy and paste individual cells, a group of rows or columns, or I can copy the whole table. If I'm copying the whole table, I just need to make sure that the rows line up properly. I need to make sure the data in the source has the same rows in the same order as my FERC form. I can copy data from my spreadsheet. I'm making sure to exclude any headings. Then I just use Control+V to paste. The green background on the cells shows where my data is being pasted. The first column doesn't have this green background because the cells are involved in a calculation. The calculation highlighting overrides the paste highlighting. But you can see that column D is light green. If I made a mistake, let's say my prior year data is in a different data sheet, let's go ahead and copy that again without column D and paste. And now you can see that the green cells are no longer visible on column D. I can review the data and click this check mark to accept it. The red arrow is undo, which you saw me press just a minute ago. And finally, this little paperclip lets me paste into the footnotes for the fields instead. Say I had a row of footnotes that I need to paste in. I can set that up in a spreadsheet and copy and paste right into the footnotes. Let's go ahead and accept our paste. Now, for column D, I can copy a single column from my spreadsheet. All I need to do is place the cursor in the first row and hit paste. When I click on a cell in XBRLworks, I can see the calculation highlighting. That's showing me that these cells are involved in a calculation. Yellow background is being added into the total. Yellow stripes, which you can see here on row 7, are numbers that are subtracted from the total. The green cell shows the total. This little number 1 means that these numbers are involved in only one calculation. On some pages, in some forums, you'll see a number of calculations. So that's what that little number means. It's just to help you see how the numbers relate to each other. Let's click on row 14. You can see that row 14 has a little 1 and a 2. That means it's involved in 2 calculations. It's a subtotal row that's being added into a row later on the balance sheet. The green color of the 2 means that it is the total for that calculation. The black color of the 1 means that it's part of another total. If we use the mouse wheel to scroll down a little bit, we can start to see the other components of the first calculation. Row 27, row 36, and row 45 are also added into a total, which you can see on row 46. If I change a value in one of these rows that is involved in a calculation, you can see that XBRLworks will automatically update the total as well. This is one of the settings in my preferences you saw earlier. I can also force XBRLworks to recalculate the total by clicking the little equals button in the total cell. Let me put my data back to what it was. Okay, if we scroll down to the liabilities portion of this page, you can see that there's no data. When I copied my data into the page, I had only the assets portion of the balance sheet. My liabilities are on a different spreadsheet, so I'm going to go ahead and copy that spreadsheet now. I can paste right here, starting at line 47. Accept the paste, and now my balance sheet is done. When I hit save, it saves automatically. When I hit next, it saves automatically. If I try and navigate away from the page, maybe I clicked home accidentally, XBRLworks will warn me that I have unsaved changes. So you can hit that save button whenever you need. XBRLworks is fast for most tables, so you won't have to sit and wait very long for the save operation. Okay, the next page is our income statement. This is another page where I can copy and paste data from external documents. Just copy, starting from column C, and paste. Let's save the page again. Okay, I'm going to exit back to the project details for just a moment to show you how XBRLworks handles data points that appear in multiple locations. On page 116, I haven't entered any data yet, but you can see in the page listing that there is a pencil icon next to the page and it has the draft status. This is a good page to show that what the field equivalencies are that we touched on earlier. XBRLworks edited this page automatically because there's an XBRL fact that appears on this page as well as on a page we already edited. So we're going to take a look at that. I don't have any data to report on this page, but if I scroll to column I, you can see that there's already data here. Let's take a look. We can open the inspector again by clicking on the little question mark button. I can see that this data is for the net income loss concept. This particular field is for the prior period. The reason there is data already in this field is because I've imported data for net income on the prior period. If I look in the area that tells me the other form pages where this field may appear, you can now see that this particular item appears on the statement of cash flows and the income statement as well as the page I'm currently viewing. I completed my data entry for the income statement page, which is why this data is here. If I change the data point on this page, that data will change on the income statement and the statement of cash flows as well. It is the same information, so the numbers must be the same everywhere. We found that as we've helped filers transition to XBRL, that some companies didn't realize that certain fields were actually equivalent until they started working with XBRL. This example is pretty obvious because it is net income. It even says on the label for this page that it's carried forward from page 114, line 29. But other fields are not as clear, so some filers discovered they were unintentionally reporting the wrong data for many years. Having this field inspector can help you understand the underlying concept that's being reported in each field, so it's much easier to correct problems like this. Let's click on the Statement of Cash Flows link here and take a look at that page. Okay, so here we are. Line 2 already contains data. You can see from that line item is for net income. The rest of the page is empty because we haven't done any data entry for this page yet. There's some more highlighting on this page. Let's inspect the field for line 10, where we can see this pale yellow background. At the top of the inspector, it says reported value displays with opposite sign. This means that a reported value of, say, 100 will display as negative 100 when users are viewing the XBRL data. In XBRLworks, you can enter this data as you want it to appear in the table, and the software will handle the XBRL data for you. This highlighting can help you troubleshoot calculation problems because you may find that you have accidentally switched these values from positive to negative or vice versa. Okay, let's close the inspector and start working on this page. This page has some sections in it that allow me to insert additional rows. You can see here at line 6. So my method of just copying and pasting the whole table isn't as efficient for this table. These areas where I can insert rows are going to trip me up. So what I want to do is just go row by row and add my data. And I can do that by copying each row individually. I'm going to start at line 4, since the data for net income is already there and I can see it matches what I have in my source data. I can copy both data points at once and paste them in and accept the paste. My source data doesn't have anything to report for line 5, so I'm going to leave that blank. For other non-cash adjustments, I have just one item to report. I'm going to copy across the entire row, so I'm grabbing the description as well as the amounts. And then again, we can accept the paste. And then I will add my line number. I'm going to call this one 6.1. While I'm typing in this field, I can show you some of the on-screen validation that XBRLworks has. The line number can only contain numbers. If I add a letter here, you can see that it immediately lets me know that my data is invalid. For other non-cash adjustments, there are also some tools here to add additional rows. Click Add to add one row, or Add multiple to set how many rows to add. This little trash can icon deletes the row from the sheet if I don't need it. I only have one item to report here, so I'll delete the blank row that I added. All right, moving on. I'm going to go back to my source data and continue adding my data to this page. As you can see, this is really very simple. I don't need to know XBRL. The interface is very user-friendly. I can breeze through data entry. We've had clients start and finish their first filing in 30 minutes. They call in because they're worried they won't know what to do or where to start, and 30 minutes later they have filings that are submitted and accepted by the FERC. It's really, really easy. And XBRLworks takes care of the calculations for me as I'm working here. So once I have the bulk of my data added to this table, the final items are already calculated for me down below. Okay, let's save this and fill out another page. I'm going to use the navigation to skip ahead to page 302. Like I mentioned earlier, there's no necessary order for completing the filing. I can start and stop and work on multiple pages at the same time. I'm going to copy my data from my spreadsheet again. I don't have anything to report for crude oil, so I can just copy the columns that have data, place the cursor in the appropriate column in XBRLworks, and paste. And accept my paste. Okay, let's save and go back to the project details page. As I've worked on my pages, XBRLworks updated the status of each one from not started to draft. You can also see that the overall progress of the project has changed. I now have 8 ongoing pages and 4 that haven't been started. XBRLworks has some additional tools to help with the workflow that I'm going to show you now. Let's go back to the balance sheet. Okay. In the Tools menu, I have some items to move the page through the workflow. If I'm done editing, I can mark this page as ready for review. When I did that, you can see all of the fields in this page turn gray, and a lock icon is going to appear. Let's give it 1 second again. Once it's under review, I can no longer make any changes to this page. If my account supports collaboration, none of my other team members will be able to edit the page either. I can send the page to my reviewer by proofing it, which is done by clicking this Proof Page button. Or, if it's a premium account, I can invite my reviewers to look at the page right in XBRLworks. So we've clicked the Proof button. It takes just a few seconds for the proof to be created. Depending on the server load again and your internet connection, it may take up to a minute, but generally it's fairly fast. Okay, so let's open our proof page. This is generated by XBRLworks, but it looks just like the proof the FERC creates on the eForm system. With this proof, I can print it to paper or to PDF to share. All of my data is here, as you can see as we scroll down. XBRLworks has options to create a more friendly proof for your reviewers. You can see this proof has no page headers and no markings to indicate that it's a proof. That's a setting in my preferences. I can choose to include comments, page headers and footers, project information, etc. I can also print the data in a different font color if I want to see what I'm submitting to the FERC more easily. Let's set some of these options here and save them, and then we'll proof again so you can see what this looks like. Particularly the font color change makes it very easy to determine what numbers you're actually sending down to the FERC through the eForm system. Because recall, the text and the structure of the file, that's not what's going down, it's only the XBRL. Okay. So now we can see that some things have been added to the proof, including this project header and some more information. Proofs stay in XBRLworks until I delete them or run out of storage. The Basic Plus subscription includes 10 gigabytes of storage, which should last quite a while. And again, here is our proof with everything turned on. Proof information, a linked table of contents, page headers, and now my data is in blue. And again, this blue text indicates that this is the data that is an XBRL fact. And XBRL facts are the data points being submitted to the FERC. And they are the only data points that are submitted. All the surrounding text, tables, instructions aren't actually submitted. And as I said, I can use this browser to print to PDF or send it to HTML to any reviewers, and I can do this at any time in my process and as many times as I need. And we can also proof the entire project at once. All right, so let's head back to my project. As we get to the project details page, you can see that page 110 is now marked under review. I'll open that page back up right now. So once the review process is underway, your reviewers may want to change the status of this page depending on how that process goes. Under the Tools menu, that function to mark the page under review has now been replaced with these new tools, Mark Approved and Mark Rejected. Depending on the results of this review, I can mark the page as rejected, which will remove the lock and allow me and my team to edit it again. Or I can mark this page as approved, which preserves the lock and places the page into the completed pile. Once a page is approved, I can still reject it. If during a final review an error or omission is caught, I can go back to that Tools menu and mark the page as rejected, which will open it back up for editing again. And with editing, I can also view the edit history for each page. My edit history is a little sparse here since I've only saved the balance sheet once after my initial data entry. But I can see here when the save occurred, and I can also see what the data was saved onto the sheet by clicking on this magnifying glass. In addition, the edit history will also show you who edited what when if you're working with multiple team members, which will allow you to track edits as they're occurring with your whole team. So that's a little overview of the editing process and the workflow tools. I can also validate my projects. You saw the on-screen validation earlier. XBRLworks isn't going to let me save outrageously bad data into the form, so I can't, as you saw, put a word in a column that's expecting numbers or put an integer in a field that needs a date. But I still need validation to make sure my data integrity is good. I want to make sure that my numbers all add up and that I'm not missing anything that the FERC is requiring me to report. So, as we're back on our project here, we've clicked Validate. This runs my project through the same validation that the eForm system uses when you submit a filing. Anything that comes back as an error in this validate function will prevent your filing from being accepted by the FERC. So I'm not expecting a clean error report here. I didn't review what I added to each page very carefully, and I didn't finish my data entry. We do have a few errors in my filing. Like I said, some of these aren't surprising because I left certain pages like the certification page blank. But let's skip over those errors and take a closer look at this particular one. This error is telling me that I have a value in my report that has a breakdown, and the value isn't equivalent to the sum of the components in the breakdown. One value is being reported in one place, and that needs the same number in another field in another value in a different field. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. I can do that by clicking the error in the log. This brings me to the page with the problem, and it places the cursor right in the field. This page has operating expenses broken down to two segments, crude oil and products. Each segment has a total, and then the grand total of both segments is reported in column I. So if we look at the calculation highlighting the totals in column I, we can see that XBRLworks is ignoring the subtotal columns to calculate that field. Instead, it's adding all the components to create the grand total. And that's okay, but it explains why the calculation wasn't adjusted when we added the data and how we managed to insert conflicting data. The on-screen calculations follow the relationship specified in the FERC taxonomy, whereas the validation tool has additional rules in it. We need to look back through the data to find where the incorrect number is that's causing this conflict. So let's start by taking a look at row 1. We have just a few data points here, which will make it easy to track down the problem. You can see in column H that the subtotal for the products is incorrect. At some point in our data collection process, two numbers were transposed. So you see we have 25,409 instead of 25,490. The sum of the subtotal for oil, which is empty or 0 for us, and the products is not the same as the grand total of all the gathering, trunk, and delivery components. This is really easy to correct. I can place the cursor in the field and just use standard keyboard conventions to correct the number. When I click off that field, XBRLworks is going to recalculate the total in row 8 as well. Just by comparing the numbers, I can see that now they're all the same, so that's going to correct the errors in my log. So I can go ahead and mark these errors as resolved by clicking the check mark next to them. That creates a record, so if I need to or want to go back and see which user corrected certain errors, I can get that information from XBRLworks. When I click that check mark, it also hides the error in the log, so I can work through each error. Only errors on the page I have open can be resolved, so you'll see these errors about the missing attestation information don't have a check mark. Let me go and correct those as well. I'll use the navigation page to quickly get to the attestation page and enter the missing data by clicking on each field and typing the information in. So again, this is really very quick, very easy. I'm just going to type in the information on the attestation page. And then I'm going to need to do the same on the identification page. Here I didn't fill out the company address or other information, so I'm going to do that quickly now. Maybe as we're typing in here, are there any questions that we could answer?
I do have one that came up, and the person wanted to know if they can add their own validations in.
That's not something XBRLworks currently supports, but it is on our development schedule. Obviously, you can see with making pages not applicable that sometimes certain data doesn't apply to you, or it might be required for you. Like you really do need to fill this out, and it's not included necessarily in eForms validation rules. So it's on our it's a plan to go in and make it so that you can design your own validation rules to say this field I need to fill out, these I don't, and so on.
I
Okay,
can
so
I can add into
okay.
that basically the XBRL rules are FERC rules are written in Zool. So what we're planning on doing eventually is allowing you to write your own Zool rules, which probably would require our support staff, but they don't generally take a lot of time to do unless it's something that's extremely complicated. So we are looking forward to doing that.
Okay, so I've validated my project again, and now you can see there are no more errors. I have just a few more pages to complete, but since we're running short on time, I'm going to wrap things up. For the remaining data entry, it's the same simple process, and I can validate as I go, print proofs as often as I need. Error logs are retained and stored under the Related Files tab on the project details page. And once I've completed my form and it's been approved for submission, all that's left to do is send it to the FERC. That's done right here on the project details page. I can submit without updating my page statuses to approved. If I decide those workflow tools aren't necessary to how we like to work, I can submit right now. If I like to keep things moving forward with a checklist, I can take the time to go onto the pages and mark them as they progress. Doing either won't prohibit me from submitting test or live filings to the FERC. FERC filing credentials are set in the preferences, and you can change these as often as you need. And then you just submit, and you're done. It's simple and fast. Before I hand the reins back to Scott to wrap things up, I'd like to take one more minute to show everyone how to register for an account. It's really easy, and there's no obligation to buy. If you do register after this presentation, you can get a free trial of the software and just try it for yourself. To make an account, go to ferc.xbrl.works and click the register button in the upper right. All you need is your name, your company, and an email address to get started. And with that, I'm going to send things back to Scott. I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and thanks so much for attending.
Okay, thank you, Maggie. Just give me Okay, let me just finish up here with a couple of things, and then we'll cover some questions. A little bit about the platform. We decided to develop this on Microsoft Azure. We've also worked on AWS or Amazon. They're very similar, but the key thing is that as we did this, Azure has multiple databases, redundant databases and redundant servers. And since we've set this thing up, and we've also used Azure for years as a test platform for one of our other web products, we've experienced zero downtime, which is pretty amazing. AWS has been, when we've used that, is almost as good as like 99.99999%. So that all the stuff is really good. And I myself have always been a little nervous having key things on the internet because we all know there's glitches occasionally, but it's been amazing how good this business platform actually is. So as long as you have internet access, you can get to XBRL.works, work with a tablet, you can work with a PC, Mac. It doesn't really matter as long as it's a modern compliant browser. It should operate. We test across all the common browsers as part of our QA process. We also support single sign-on and multi-factor authentication. So depending on what your security requirements are, we certainly can work with that. We also have a SOC report available on request every year. We run through and do a full third-party independent audit of our incoming access to the websites. And then we also go through the process of SOC auditing to make sure that our processes are all and procedures are all A, good, and B, that they're being followed. So let me jump then into the pricing. Now, Maggie was showing you Basic Plus. You can move up as necessary. The big difference between the blue and moving up to the green is that you have collaboration. So if you have team members that you want to key in and have them do certain things, whether it's review or actually enter data whatever the case happens to be, then you would move up to Premium or Premium Plus. Under Basic Plus, if you have multiple people you want to work on, that's fine. You just can't both be logged in at the same time. So you can share a common login, which sometimes can be a problem for certain organizations depending on what your security setup is. So let me go ahead and jump to some questions here before we wrap up. Let me see what we've got. The first one's actually a good one, and this is one that we hope that people would ask. I've been using another vendor. How can I get my data into XBRLworks? You want to answer that, Maggie?
Sure. So there's a couple different ways you could use another vendor. If you've got spreadsheets already set up, obviously that's going to be, pretty easy. You can just copy and paste. We didn't show it during the demonstration, but you can also import directly from CSV. So if you have a lot of data, you can get in quickly that way. The other way you can do it is simply get your previous quarter or annual filing in XBRL, which you can download from the FERC's eForm system, and import that directly into XBRLworks. And that's just going to take what you filed last time and bring it right into this very user-friendly, intuitive web interface for you to work with the numbers. It's working with the XBRL in the background, but you don't see it. You're just going to be looking at these nice web forms and putting your data in that way. So there's those two different ways. And of course, you could always contact support. We'd be more than happy to help you get started getting your data transitioned over.
So if I do that and I want to advance to the next period, is that something that can be done easily?
Yeah, we mentioned that earlier. You can go to Copy Project, and there's an option on the Copy Project dialog to roll your project forward. And wherever possible, it's going to try to advance your reporting period forward, move what was your current data to the prior period on your new report, and bring as much as it can over for you so you don't have to key in as much as you need to.
It's not a question that was, oh yeah. In the demo, why did the start of the period end up for the quarter January 1st, set January 1st?
Yeah, so that's a good question. We've actually had multiple people calling to support about this. It's actually a little bit of an oddity with FERC. The reporting periods are cumulative. So the third quarter, the second quarter, they all start on January 1st of that year. If you go ahead and change that, XBRL will give you an error letting you know that you've got to start on January 1st. It's just one of those odd things.
Oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense. Really, I was just talking about this. If I decide to do collaboration later, can I add it? The answer is yes. You definitely can do that.
Yes,
And in terms of the billing, I assume we just prorate that, right?
correct.
For the remaining year, so you won't have to pay for the entire year. We'll just do an adjustment. The things that are automatic, you can pay for right on the website if you like with credit card, and if you need to do a PO and pay that way via old school method, then yeah, we can do that too. I don't. Here's one on footnotes and formatting. I assume what they're talking about is if they've got big footnotes with a lot of HTML, so it's formatted footnotes. How does that work?
So we didn't show it in this demo, but what you can do is copy directly from Word into footnote fields, and XBRLworks will handle converting that into what's called XHTML for you. So all your formatting is going to get preserved. It has to go down to the FERC in XHTML format, and the software takes care of all of that for you. So if what you copy out of Word should come in pretty well. Now, if you've got really bizarre things, there might be some tweaking that you'll need to do, but generally, it'll bring over things like bulleted lists, tables, and so on.
Yeah, I'm the one who actually works on that, and I can tell you that well-formatted documents will come in very well. Sometimes you get squirrely documents that have been worked on by 15 people over the last 10 years and advanced all the time, and you have bizarre styles where the underlying styles like underlined with this, and then that was overridden when it comes. Sometimes that causes a bit of an issue, but we're pretty good at doing conversions. That's one of the things that I've been doing in my career for the entire time.
And again, if you have any questions about how to convert, formatting into a footnote, you can, of course, contact support and we'll help you through it.
Why on the proof did you have different colors? What's the blue mean? Why is that blue?
The blue font on the proof is a proofing preference that allows you to really quickly see what your XBRL facts are. So again, remember what you're actually sending down to the FERC is it's XML, it's tagged data. It's not that nice human readable looking proof. So the blue font can help you find your numbers in there, what you're actually reporting quickly instead of just a big chunk of black text that you have to pick through and kind of figure out where's what I put in versus what, the form is itself.
Yeah, we've actually been doing that for a very long time with SEC forms because whether it's XML or XBRL, I think it's good to know that you're not sending down the entire form like a PDF. You're actually sending down the data points of the facts. So that's why they're in blue. It helps to identify exactly what it is that you're sending versus what has been already provided by the FERC as a template. Here's one. I think we actually have one customer already doing this. If we file the same type of form using the FERC forms to another government agency, can we do that?
Yeah, absolutely. You're probably not interested in the XBRL itself, and obviously you wouldn't be submitting to eForms through XBRLworks. But if what you're submitting is the PDF, you can get that PDF as often as you want. You can create that proof, save it, and then submit it any way that you would need to whatever reporting agency that you have to do that for.
And I recall they were very sensitive about not doing anything with FERC. They didn't want it to go down there. And of course, they didn't have credentials either. So
Right. The process is essentially the same up to that last step of submit. You can just get your PDF proofs and do what you need to do with them.
one stupid question: is this going to be available for viewing? Yeah, we'll edit it and post it in a few days. And I see a couple people did jump in later on in the process here, and we'll certainly have that available. And sales will go ahead and email you the link to it. One final thing, it kind of relates to what I talked about SOC. Will you fill out an IT security survey? Oh gosh, the answer is yes. We do those all the time. I wish that just having this, the SOC would be enough, but every IT department seems to have a different flavor of that. So I think it feels like we're doing one of those every week or two sometimes. And then they repeat after, every year everybody wants to do it. So yeah, we're very sensitive to that, and we try to be as accommodating as possible. I think that's it. I don't see anything else. Okay. So with that, I don't know, do you have anything to add, Maggie?
I don't think so. Just again, you can register for an account today and start a free trial. The free trial lets you do everything except get the XBRL. So, it's really easy to get in there and play around with the software and, see if this is going to make your workflow easier. It's what we always try to do, is make your job easier.
Yeah, and if you need to contact us, it's just 585-424-1700. It's 9 to 6, Monday to Friday on Eastern Time. Support runs that way as well. But if you have stuff when you're, particularly when you're first starting that you need to get done, let us know. And we'll certainly watch email. And we do also have 24-hour platinum support available as well at an additional charge. And that lets you call in and enter some security codes, and it'll find you somebody at 3 o'clock in the morning. And yes, I'm on the chain. I have been woken up once or twice over the years. Does happen, and we understand that you occasionally need to have that as well. If you have any questions, you can email sales@novaworks.com. If you take advantage of the free trial and play around with the software and you have questions, you can email support@novaworkssoftware.com, or you can call in and we'd be happy to walk you through what, whatever you're trying to do. And finally, you can register and try for free at FERC.XBRL.works. Remember, it's XBRL.works, and set yourself up. If you use a Gmail or one of the general popular common emails, you'll probably get a gray list violation and we'll have to approve it. If you're using your company credentials, then it'll just fly through and you can use it right away. So With that, I thank everybody for attending and hope to talk to you all soon at some point. Thank you.